Now, I want to say, before we get too deep into this, that I predicted that the horned figure we saw at the end of Knock Knock Knocking on Hootie's Door was not King's father. A lot of people thought it was, but I didn't think that really fit. I thought that would be too easy and too contrived for the King's father plotline to just be resolved that simply, and also, in a more prosaic sense, the figure that we see as King's father in those murals does not really look much like this horn figure. But anyway, go back and watch my video titled something like, "Is this King's father?" if you want to hear me talk more about that from the perspective we had back in Season 2A. But now we have a lot more information, and it's worth looking at. We know that King is a Titan now. A lot of people had predicted this. I wasn't sure if this would come true, but it is true. And that has heavy implications for how King is going to figure into the last part of the show. Especially since the Collector seems to despise King's kind if the reverence the Titan trappers that we see in Edge of the World give to the Collector as any indication. So perhaps the Collector and Baylos are going to be going after King now. But back to this mysterious figure. We didn't know a lot about him, and perhaps it would have been better had King never received that letter from him in the first place, because this figure assumes that King is a kid of a Titan trapper, and so King is taken to this mysterious out-of-the-way island and raised in the ways of the Titan trappers, only for the allegiance of these Titan trappers to the whimsical, demoniac fury of the Collector to become clear, and then King is revealed to be a Titan, so obviously they need to save him from the Titan trappers, which does end up happening, and King is left in this moment of ambiguous melancholy. There's no catharsis, but there is a sense of resolution. King knows who his father was now, and that has been a major mystery for King for a long time. He knows his father was this powerful, regal Titan, but he also knows his father was killed at some point and thus is no longer around. He will never meet his father unless some sort of strange resurrection spell happens. Hopefully there is a moment in an upcoming episode wherein Luce and King talk about this, because it is a similarity between them that the show has taken time and effort to flesh out, that both of them lack a father. I'm sure some real dramatic pathos could come out of such interactions. Though King comes to resent the Titan trappers when he realizes that they tricked him, and though he knows that because they are not his real family, he will never meet his biological family because they're dead, he does have the answers he wanted now, and he can move forward while taking those answers into account. I'm glad Season 2 has brought us to this point. It really feels like the show is approaching its end, and though the show was forced to end earlier than Terrace and her writers and storyboarders hoped, I do believe that the show is going to have a satisfying conclusion. They have set up all these major plot points and resolved a lot of mysteries. A lot of characters in the show now know the truth about themselves. We know the truth about Hunter's past, we know the truth about King's past, and we know the truth about the Day of Unity. And now that we've spent time unraveling Luce's past as well, we know enough about these characters that we're prepared to send them into the final battle, the final grand confrontations. And it doesn't really feel like we're missing that much. Obviously, there are questions that need to be answered, but the show has been quite efficient and quite economical in resolving a lot of the major mysteries that it has set up without feeling that it's been too tidy or feeling that it's prioritizing plot over actual character. These plot and lore points have been tied together so seamlessly and brilliantly with the actual emotionality of these characters and their journeys. But let's think about the show's focus on King's father in a wider context. The show has always spent so much time emphasizing these tense but loving familial dynamics and how they should be handled. And at the same time, the show has given us examples of these bleak, loveless, rigid familial dynamics that should absolutely be avoided. The show's foremost example of a good family, a family that is not without problems but is open and communicative, is our little Owl House family itself. And I love how the show has emphasized that it is in fact a family, that absolutely everyone considers it that. In reaching out, Alador, Amity's father, calls Luce Edelin's kid. In Elsewhere and Elsewhen, Luce refers to Lilith as her cool aunt. And in this episode, in The Edge of the World, we see King refer to Luce as his sister. And in his dream, he emphasizes again that he has an owl family there in the Owl House with Ida and Luce, and Hootie to an extent. Now, of course, there are problems in these bonds. Trying to make familial dynamics completely without problems leads to people not talking about the problems they inevitably have, and thus the bonds become rigid and mechanical and impersonal and robotic. There's no real sense of feeling as opposed to mere duty. Think about The Edge of the World. At the start of this episode, there is a major conflict between Luce and Ida about what is to be done now that Baylos has discovered that they're onto him, that they know his secrets and they know what the Day of Unity is going to be. Ida wants them to stay safe and to not go out on any grand missions, whereas Luce, while acknowledging the danger they're in and still reeling from her guilt at realizing that she helped Baylos, still wants to help King. She still wants to go on this adventure to help him find out the truth about himself. And there are no easy answers to this conflict, but it's able to be resolved because they're willing to talk about it. They're willing to be open with each other, and they're only able to do that because there is this expectation of trust. There is this expectation that the other people will be open to what they have to say. And there is the expectation that they themselves will be open to everything that other people have to say. That's not to say that they will mindlessly accept any proposition the other person in the family throws out there, but they're willing to take it seriously instead of retreating into their own little atomized, isolated, individual selves and their mere egoistic desires. The communal bonds between them are strong. Of course, consider Baylos, who is the exact opposite of this imperfect but still loving family. He is so desperate to have a perfect brother, meaning a brother who agrees with him on most everything, and a brother who is as committed to the Day of Unity and Baylos' grand witch-hunting ambitions, as Baylos himself is, that he is willing to kill his brother and replace his brother with a bunch of clones that he wants to fulfill his own desires. And when these clones still refuse to do what Baylos wants, he kills them and tries again. He only tolerates obedience to his will. That is the only kind of connection that he is willing to tolerate. Now, King exists in this liminal, empty space between these two extremes. He doesn't have a terrible, cruel, abusive family dynamic like Baylos and his brother, and his relationship with his biological family is not as warm and welcoming as his relationship with the Owl family, or even Luce's relationship with Camilla, which is rocky, but still filled with a lot of love and commitment and a desire to make each other happy and satisfied. No, King doesn't have any living relatives. He is just completely alone in that sense. Of course, he thankfully has these strong bonds that he's found in his accidental family. Ida has become a mother to him and raised him to be this roguish but still thoughtful and basically moral being who, despite his pretenses of being this grand king of demons, is considerate of what others want and is willing to question why he himself wants what he wants. That bond is strong, and it's almost enough to make King not long for connection with his father. Almost. That desire to connect with his father still matters to King, and him not having that ability to connect is melancholic. It's a hole that will never be filled in King's heart. And that imperfection is what the show thankfully never dances around. It never asserts that things are going to be completely alright, that this accidental family will heal the problems and sorrows of all its family members, but it's the best relief and comfort that these people can get. So thank you all for watching. If you liked what you saw today, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Donate to my Patreon if you can, and you want to see more videos like this before anyone else. Keep watching at the Owl House. What do you make of the theory being confirmed that King is actually a Titan? What implications do you think this will have for the rest of the show, particularly considering the tension between King and the manic ambitions of Baylos? Anyway, tune in soon for my next analysis. It will be coming soon. I promise you that. Thank you all again. Adios, comrades.